This episode is supported by Battlefoam.com.
Humanity has been driven from Earth, but now it's time to take it back. Join the Reconquest and fight the Scourge on the Drop Zone Commander Hub at beastsofwar.com. Flames of War brings you the battles of World War II in epic 15mm scale. Go to the hub on beastsofwar.com to find news, tactics, and tutorials about the game.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the Weekender. Did you miss us? Okay, we're back. It's time for your Saturday morning where we're just going to give you a dose of great gaming. Isn't that right, Justin?
Yeah.
So I'm joined by Justin in the chair and Ben on the screen. Right. We have so much to get through this episode. We have new channels joining us. We have new series coming out on YouTube. We've got a great giveaway. We're going to be announcing the prize winner for the SmogCon. There's Warren meets Matt. We've got some great World War II Flames of War stuff lined up as well. Tons of news, Kickstarters. It's all in there. Right. To kick us off, we are being joined by another channel is now joining us. Okay. This is something that we're going to be experimenting and expanding with going forward. And those amazing fellows behind the Knights of Ren podcast are going to be joining Beasts of War as a kind of like an independent partner channel. So let me explain how this works. At the moment, it'll mean that when you come to beastsofwar.com on Mondays and Tuesdays, you're going to find a full Star Wars Destiny podcast that'll be uploaded by the guys. For any of you guys that play Star Wars Destiny, it is awesome. He plays it, don't you, Ben?
I do, yeah. It's really good fun. And the Knights of Ren have been doing some fantastic stuff with their podcast. They've been looking at things tactically, as well as sort of tips and stuff for collecting and how you might pull together a little bit of a team and stuff. And obviously they cover all the latest news as well. So if there's anything you want to know about Star Wars Destiny, these are the guys that pretty much are in the know about everything. So yeah.
Cool. So in terms of we should have a kind of like a Knights of Ren link somewhere on the site. And all of their content, their previous content, will be available there as well. We're hoping that you guys enjoy their stuff, support them. We're going to have links to their Patreon and stuff like that. The idea being that we're going to be gradually kind of reaching out to other partner channels and stuff like that to give them a channel on Beasts of War. These channels will make more sense later in the year whenever Beasts of War 2 finally starts to make its appearance. We still have a bit to go. We have a 1.5 Beasts of War where everything is kind of being upgraded in a back-end perspective. But when Beasts of War 2 starts to come on, all of these channels and this whole concept of channels on Beasts of War will start to make a lot more sense. And it's a big navigation update to make it easy for you to find the content you love, the games you love, the Justins you love. So it'll all make more sense then. But we want to say a massive shout out and a massive welcome aboard to the Knights of Ren. I've had a listen to the podcast. Love it. Lovely guys. We're going to try and do a bit of crossover stuff as well. So yeah, it's great. And we're just really happy to try this out and have those guys on board with us. In other news, last night we put out... I'm going to say like the first episode of 40K Charted. And it literally was the first episode of 40K Charted. So it was the first episode of the first season of 40K Charted.
Yeah.
I put out a little message just to you YouTubers on Thursday evening just to describe what it is. I'll very quickly recap. We are now on to season 2 of 40K Charted. 40K Charted was something that was a journey for me. I really wanted to try and unlock more depth of knowledge and love for 40K, and the way to do that for me personally is through its narrative. So I've been joined by AJ, who's my trusty guide through the 40k universe, and AJ has been taking me through all kinds of aspects of 40k. So the series is basically, though, evolved into a much deeper look at the narrative behind the game and how we translate that narrative into the tabletop. Because what I discovered is that the more that I understood what was happening in 40k, like for example Cypher and the Primarchs, the more that I was really enjoying the games of 40k that we were playing, because the games just meant so much more to me. It became less meta, because it's very easy to get sucked into the meta of any game, especially 40k, where there is just so much meta there. But what I found was that moments that would have been insignificant kind of math hammer before, I was now chuckling and laughing, and I was able to actually put it into a narrative context. So it's a great series. We're sharing it now because we have 30 or 40 episodes or something in season 1. They've been backstage. We're going to start bringing them out weekly on every Friday night, or most Friday nights, for you guys on YouTube. Season 2 is now kicking off on backstage over on beastsofwar.com. It's kicking off with us now getting into a bit of 30k. So it's going to kind of alternate between 30k and what's happening in the current timeline of 40k. We have a number of episodes in the can where we're looking at this current switchover, all based around the fall of Cadia. It is absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Cadia, the destruction of Cadia is just the tip of the iceberg of what's going to happen here. Yeah,
it's always been the linchpin.
It's going to be fascinating to see where it goes, and that's the kind of the split of what's happening so far in season 2. Remember, this is the year that 40k 8th edition is going to drop. When 8th edition drops, we're hoping to get in. I have my own personal hopes. I'm hoping for a much more simplified game, a game where the meta is a lot more streamlined, a game where special rules and things like that are much more contained. From a personal perspective, I have found that 7th edition became too big, became very difficult for me to enjoy a full game without feeling like I was leaving bits out or not fully grasping the entire game. You always came away from a game of 7th edition going, I wonder, did we really get it all? Because there was so many layers of depth. I'd like to see it all really scaled back and really tightened up. But that's just a personal hope of mine.
We see, here's the thing for the season 1. The 40k universe is so vast. It has so many years to actually bed in and grow and grow and grow. The season 1 is a really great jumping off point to actually get you that sort of wedge to first get you into the world, so then you can begin to explore on your own. Or at least that's what I'm seeing from the outside of it.
I learned so much. Even learning about we have multi-part episodes on the structure of the Imperium. We have multi-part episodes on the backstory to the Emperor himself. The Emperor, for many of us getting into 40k, and this is why the series is really good for anybody who's thinking, 8th edition's coming, I want to start getting into this game. The Emperor, most of us, all we ever see is that rotting corpse on the Golden Throne. You then learn a little bit about him during the Horus Heresy, but what AJ has taken me through is a whole backstory even before that. We're talking about Star Children, we're talking about the various cults, we're talking about how the Emperor lived on Terra for many thousands of years. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And all of that ties in to even what's happening right now, which we're going to be discussing Monday in season 2. All of this stuff that the Eldar are up to. The Eldar have a vested interest in the Emperor, most likely as well. He may well be part of their whole thing of godhood and stuff like that. It's really, really fascinating. Anyway, we're really, really looking forward to sharing it with you guys on YouTube. Please get stuck into the comments on that, because it's, as I said, it's a journey for me, and I really love learning from you guys as well. Finally, myself and AJ are looking to expand our little 40k twosome to a 40k threesome, in the purest sense. So if you fancy being the third of our triptych, guy or girl, and you fancy working here in the studios in Coleraine, please drop us, go onto the Beasts of War menu, go to the contact menu, and get in touch. We are looking now for a third person, somebody who's skilled in 40k, loves the game, loves the hobbying around it. Just get in touch and let us know, because we're looking for more folk to join this journey with us. Right. We had no weekenders last weekend because we were live blogging from SmogCon.
Yeah, my fault. Myself and Ben were across in beautiful Birmingham covering, actually, surprisingly, the last ever SmogCon.
Ben is giggling there because you just referred to it as the beautiful Birmingham. I think it's the first time he's ever heard it.
No one ever calls it that, yeah.
I actually loved it. I actually loved it.
Did you have a good time?
I had a fantastic time. Met some great people.
Now, although it was the last ever SmogCon,
yeah,
the massive announcement, there was a number of massive announcements.
The
a new
biggest
faction.
One. Yeah, the Grimkin are looking so gorgeous.
And the other one is that SmogCon is now becoming Lock and Load Europe.
Yes,
yep,
yes,
yeah.
It is, and that is going to be really great because it's given the guy John, who was organising SmogCon, the chance to actually step away and expand into other areas because he loves painting. You know, I got a great 20-minute interview with him. He's a painter, so he wants to build a nice big hobby segment to it. Because while we're there, it was all your tournament games, all your friendly games, all your board gaming, all your role playing. Yeah. He wants to bring some more painting and hobby style stuff to it as well, which I think is going to be absolutely fantastic. Our good buddies Battlefront were there as well, doing great stuff there as well. Yeah, chucking in tons of prize support to the event, which was really cool of them. Yeah, and overall it was just such fun. And we had a prize for it. Yeah. And I would like to announce that prize. So,
okay, so what was the prize?
The prize was a Ripper plushie. So, a little Jack from Cricks. So one of those done as a little cuddly toy. We then had the SmogCon exclusive mini, the SmogCon exclusive pin, and a set of the Privateer casino dice. Now, these are quite rare.
Right.
They are quite rare.
Okay.
And we've chosen a winner for this. So, make sure if you're the winner, get your prize claim in on beastofwar.com. So, our winner is Nuke Mechanic.
Congratulations.
Get your claim in, mate, because this is a cool prize that you do not want to miss out on.
Absolutely. Right. Talking about prizes, this week we're going to be giving away the Battle Foam Fantasy Football Bag.
So that's what this is here for.
And that is exactly what this is for. This is a new bag from Battle Foam. You'll have seen at the start of the show that Battle Foam have been very good to the Beasts of War community for a long number of years. I think that they were one of the first companies to jump on board whenever we kicked off this whole Beasts of War thing to try and support the community, help us cover the costs of servers and stuff like that. There, more recently they've stepped up to help with the Weekender and stuff like that. So I just want to say a personal thank you to the guys at Battle Foam, because they've supported this community through thick and thin. Over the last number of years, and I don't often get the chance to say a thank you, but I just wanted to say a thank you to the guys over there because it is very much appreciated. Right, this is the new fantasy football bag from Battle Foam. Clearly, the two fantasy football games come to mind for me just off the top of my head. Yep. Blood Bowl.
Of course.
And Guild Ball.
Oh,
okay.
Yes.
You could stick Dread Bowl in it. You could do any of the games, but the two that I'm thinking of right now are Blood Bowl and Guild Ball. Yeah. Okay. So the bag itself, let's see if we can start to show off some of the bits and pieces on it. So, oh, that's a cup of tea. That's not a bag. So it's the usual stuff from Battle Foam. It's all
heavy-duty fabric.
Heavy-duty fabric. Yep. You have a pocket at the front here, which is padded. Yep. So you could probably put a small tablet, put your phones, put anything you want to protect in the likes of that. Yep. The other thing is these days there is loops. So if you wanted to put a little lock between those, you could
just
to
keep
lock
that
it,
little safer,
to lock it up. Then getting into the bag itself, it comes with a foam loadout, I believe. On the internal pocket, just before we get that, there's another spot here where you can put in
I would say rule
books, army lists, things like that. You then have your layers of foam. So we have two Guild Ball teams laid out.
Yeah, we have the Studio Butchers and my Brewers in there.
So we've got two Guild Ball teams. You can see that there is a stack of foam, so two layers, including this pluck pluck foam here. There is a detachable middle bar that's a rigid middle bar. So if you wanted to change the foam loadout, you could do that. So it's versatile from that perspective. Let me just move the foam out of the way.
Yep.
On the side of the bag, you have pockets galore. So you have pockets for dice. So let me just bring this back over here. I'm going to stop cutting to that cup of tea any second. So
Pop the sides open.
I've got the contents of the Guild Ball kickoff kit here. So I want to just want to show what your options are.
If you give me the dice.
So you've got dice in there.
Off them on the side. Jobs are good.
You also can put your counters on that side. On the other side of the bag, you have one that's slightly longer. Once again, for the likes of templates and measuring sticks. Then on the back, it gets even better again, because this whole thing opens up, and you have card
pockets.
Card pockets. Okay, so if you wanted, you could have your Guild Ball teams or your teams for Blood Bowl, and have your cards all tucked in there as such. And again, it's a bag that is big enough to carry loads.
Yep.
And then finally,
carry multi-games in this.
You have this, where if you wanted to stick your Blood Bowl board, or in this case, your Guild Ball board. That's
actually a perfect fit.
It is an absolute perfect fit. It's a very, very well-designed bag. The stitching is great on it. It has both the handle and the actual holder. Strap.
Yep.
It's a great piece of kit. So if you're into your fantasy football, which there are tons of options for at the moment, all you have to do to be in with the chance of winning that bag is simply post a comment below, either here on beastsofwar.com or on this video on YouTube, or on the corresponding post on Facebook. So post below, we'll be picking a winner and we'll announce next week. Right, last thing to mention is next weekend is the Flames of War 4th Edition Boot Camp, where ourselves and a whole bunch of guinea pigs are going to be getting to grips with the brand new edition of Flames of War 4th Edition.
Yeah.
It's set in the desert, so Al-Alamein kind of stuff going on. I'm very, very excited about it. If you're interested in following along, we are doing some vlogs for our backstagers to show them how the terrain and stuff like that is coming together. We have upgraded here at Beast of War HQ from 4x4 tables to 6x4 tables.
Yep, I got to get back to my joinery roots and actually do all the tabletops. Yay!
Yeah, so this was another big step for us. We've had a couple of big steps this last couple of weeks. First was upgrading all of our gaming tables from 4x4 to 6x4 and actually finding a way to fit it in. Because as well as being great for Flames of War, it does open up the possibility of us maybe doing the likes of a 40k event, or a Kings of War event,
or doing a nice big feature game with a 12x4.
We have lots of things running around in our minds right now of things that you guys as a community can hop across and join in, and we can all kind of get stuck in together. It's worth mentioning what the purpose of the boot camps are. We love having you guys come to our boot camps because it can get quite lonely here. And we don't want to sit in an echo chamber. It's really, really nice to be able to open our doors and to put on an event and have great food, great drink, and great entertainment and what we call crack with members of our community who do seem to enjoy it. We get the number of guys who have been trying to make it to every one of the events that we have done.
Yep.
But remember, it's not only about the 20 people or the 18 or the 24 people that come along to an event. The whole purpose of a boot camp is to give you the experience of what it's like to get into a game from scratch. So if a game appeals to you, or you don't know if it appeals to you, the whole purpose of a boot camp is for us to show you through their eyes just what it was like to get into that game under ideal circumstances, and to get all of that content and have it there as a record that if you then decide that you want to get into it, you have 3 days of solid content that you can sit and browse through whenever you buy your starter set or whatever it is for that game, and you can then do the whole getting started thing and join virtually the boot campers that we had on the journey that they had, but you can take it with them.
Yeah, that, and if you're trying to convince your mates to get in, you've got a fantastic resource there just to show it off to them.
Yeah, so it's a great weekend's entertainment, not only for the folk that are here physically, but it's a great weekend's entertainment for the entire community to get involved in. And hey, you learn something about a game. We had two unfortunate things to announce on the boot camp. One of our boot campers, Minty, unfortunately took unwell, and he isn't going to make it. Minty, just a big shout out to you, mate. We're gutted that you can't make it over. But we are rooting for you, and we will no doubt see you on another event sometime soon. And another reason I'm crying is Dr. Dave can't make it.
Oh, come on. Serious?
I am going to die. I am going to die.
What happened?
My whole year has fell apart on this one. Dr. Dave was supposed to be at this boot camp, but unfortunately, Dr. Dave has been unwell. Dave, I love you, man. My wishes with you. Dave has said though that he's dying to get over. So sometime later in the year, when he gets more time, the guy's a surgeon. Working in hospitals and stuff like that. There, that's a whole other level of importance above pushing wee men's around. we may not like it, but that's the way it is. But he's been unwell. He's not feeling well enough to come across. So Dave, love you, man. Love you. I want to get you across as soon as possible. So when you're feeling up to it and your schedule allows, we will get you here. But we still have all the other boot campers. We have Jim Oriskany from the website is coming across. Jim is talking about doing a mini campaign during the boot camp as well.
Wow.
It sounds flipping awesome.
So
there's going to be our boot campers, as well as actually getting to grips with the game, they're going to be able to do it while playing a mini Al-Alamein desert campaign. So we're going to be reporting on all of this. This is a boot camp that the boot campers are just running with. This is no longer anything to do with us. This is all them. So yeah, stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of fun next weekend. Right. I feel it coming on. I feel it's time to approach my stripper pole. It is time for Warren Meets Matt. Game Mat EU. I told you we were going to get some stonkers in, so this is kind of like a double done.
Yeah.
This is a mat.
Yep, so this is the Forgotten Realm mat.
And pre-painted terrain. So, what is the name of the terrain, Justin?
It is the Highland set.
This is the Highland set, and it's a pre-painted resin terrain set. You get the whole shebang.
Yes.
All of these different rocks and stuff. Resin, but hollow resin. So you don't need to worry. I was thinking, whenever I thought resin, I saw the size of it, I thought, I'm going to be able to kill someone with that. You could probably still maim someone with it, but you're not going to kill him with it.
Just like, world's strongest man.
We did a bit of a layout here because we thought, why don't we do what turned out to be looking like a visitor centre at a henge.
It's not a visitor centre. I was very meticulously laying this out.
Yeah, but it's all the nicely laid out roads around it. It looks like a henge visitor centre.
But I see, this is Disney World, the Lion King, because you'll just...
Oh yeah, we'll get little
Elton John song just as he's standing up top
little
there.
Jimba here, we'll chuck him off the end.
That was my whole point. This looks like a worn area where they've been doing like ceremonies and stuff, like druid ceremonies.
Yeah, that works.
And someone's standing up here chanting and getting on.
Yeah.
And doing...
All I'm saying is, right, whenever you put your little saga guys on this, because of all the roads, they're going to look like modern day reenactors. Battling it out on a henge.
But perhaps it was a Roman visitor centre.
Yeah, Roman roads. This would work for Roman.
Come on. What have the Romans ever done for us?
Roads. Actually, roads.
That doesn't even look like a Roman road. It's not straight enough. There's maybe a little bit of it looks like a Roman road.
You have to use your imagination when it comes to these things.
Right, let's talk about the mat to begin with.
Yeah.
Fabulous mat. There is actually a winterized version of this mat.
Yes.
So stay tuned to a future episode. In the next couple of weeks, we'll try and get a hold of it to show you it, because I really like what Game Mat EU are doing with that kind of stuff.
Also, the guys at home may recognise this mat slightly because we did use it in a battle report, but it wasn't this exact one, because they do the 6x4, the 4x4, and the 3x3.
So did we use the 4x4?
We used the 3x3.
We used the 3x3.
On the dry dock.
Was it for the Wrath of Kings?
No, Wrath of Kings was one we custom made. This was for a Volsung battle.
For a Volsung
John
battle.
Fly.
Okay, so it does come in multiple sizes. Let's look at some of the details, okay? Lovely kind of loose cobble. Is that even called cobble? I'm not sure what the name of that is. It's a kind of a cobble. It's not your kind of tightly packed city cobble. It's more of your country cobble. You then have your various grass textures. This has a real Halo thing to me. I remember whenever Halo first came out, and myself and Lloyd were playing on, were we on Xbox Live or something playing it? And all the pair of us did for about half an hour was just run around looking at the different grass textures. We're so weird.
Really?
Yes.
Look at this one. Look, it smells of dirt coming through this
Look, it's
one.
got dirt coming through it, Lloyd. It's really, really well done. Look, and as you get closer, the resolution is just so good.
You see, you have to realize we were coming out of like 16-bit and early PC computing and stuff at this point. The grass looked amazing.
So we
whenever
are
you
grass
make those first
admirers
leaps to
here at
proper 3D.
Beast of War. So of this kind.
But if there was a 28mm version of Halo, this would be amazing for that. I could just see like ghosts and stuff flying around here.
I do have to wonder, for these, did they actually just cast stones? Because they are so natural looking.
Maybe. Maybe they just whipped out their stones and cast them, Justin. They're a very natural looking
There's
thing.
a nice selection of stones we have on display.
Yeah.
In terms of the mat itself, from a gameplay perspective, you have this kind of a big looping kind of arc. So I've got an idea. All right.
Are you back to racing?
Are
you going to put Fred Flintstone's car in this?
No, I'm thinking orc chariot racing, right?
Yeah.
I have a couple of orc chariots from the Warhammer Fantasy days, right? You could totally use this mat for actual chariot racing.
How about each of us
outside.
takes a race and tries and finds a chariot for it?
Yeah, I think you could use that. And what I'm trying to get across is there's a little bit of quirkiness. You know, the mat very clearly is going to suit any kind of like role-playing game in a fantasy setting. Some of the historical games are going to work lovely on that. Bolt action will quite happily work on that.
I'm going to lean towards fantasy mostly for the mat.
Yeah,
Yes, it is a little strange to have.
well, it's
A circle.
no, but your stone circle, right?
Revenge.
It's we're laughing, but these things actually do exist.
I'm going to call it ends. I need to put bigger rocks in.
Yeah.
So no, you just have that in the middle there, so it's
But
nice.
by the
And then
same
it
mark,
counts.
if you take all the rocks off this and put something else on, a ton of buildings and stuff, this will make a fantastic
it completely changes when you start to put buildings on it. Anyway, texture wise, beautiful mat. Regarding the actual terrain pieces themselves, you get a ton of them in the box. It's a big ass box, and there's some really great and interesting shapes for it. In terms of actually stacking your miniatures and things on it, well, certainly you could do a bit in and around that. They are kind of more impassable, though, I've got to say, for a terrain style.
Yeah, these are all about funneling your troops and changing their directions and stuff.
Creating those choke points.
But I'm really impressed with it. You know, for something that comes out of the box that you have to do absolutely nothing to.
Great.
It's great. As a starting point for a hobby project, I'd quite happily be having a look at this and looking at some of the moss and things like that, and maybe adding some extra detail to the moss using scatter, using a wargame scatter and stuff like that. If you just wanted to change the texture just a little bit.
I don't know, even if you get a little bit of wash onto those just to deepen the colours and stuff, it's going to bring it
Don't need
along.
washed.
No,
You
it's
could maybe do a touch of dry brushing.
maybe a wee tiny
the-
touch
on
of
the
dry
green
brushing.
areas.
But for me, it would be more about using scatter just to change the type of the texture. And, just so as you have a very clear texture change between the two types of material. So paint-wise, I think they're 100%. I wouldn't even touch them. Wouldn't go near them with a paintbrush. The whole purpose of buying them is that you don't have to. And you don't have to. But if you wanted to do any kind of hobby to it, change the texture would be the only thing I would probably consider doing to it.
You definitely don't have to, and you know why? Because we're playing with it this weekend, Justin.
All right.
We're going to be sagaing on this, yeah?
Probably.
Okay.
I was looking at the sign up going, that's getting used this weekend.
Yeah, well, there you have it, guys. So it's the Forgotten Realms mat and...
The Highland Terrain set.
The Highland Terrain
guys,
set.
GameMat.eu.
Yeah, lovely stuff. We will be back with more Warren, Justin, and Lloyd meets Matt. We're starting.
We need to get John in.
We're becoming a bit of a troop now, you know. It's like, but we'll be more. We'll be back with more.
Yeah.
In the next weekender. I've got to say that stuff coming out of GameMat.eu is just beautiful.
It's mind blowing.
Okay, we're going to take a very quick break again. And then after the break, we have a World War II chat. So we've been running an article series in the build-up to the Flames of War bootcamp, looking at the desert warfare. I'm going to be talking more about this in backstage tomorrow in the XLBS version, because it kind of inspired me to think about specific environmental rules and things like that. So we're going to have a bit of a discussion on environmental rules, because Oriskany, who wrote the article, wrote this most wonderful response that just blew my mind and provoked me to start thinking about all sorts of stuff. Smell in the office was terrible. It was the smell of burning rubber all over the place. But that's just how I roll. But anyway, we have Oriskany on now. We've had 2 parts. The third part is due out on Monday. But if you want to get a really nice insight into the World War II battles that took place in the desert, with a little bit of how that then is enacted out in Flames of War 4th edition, we got Jim access to the 4th edition rules so as he could try and give us some insight to tie it to the game. This is a great wee segment to watch, and it's a great article series. So we'll be right back with Jim after we tell you about these hubs.
It's time for 28mm World War II action. Will you recreate history or reshape it your way? On the Bolt Action Hub at beastsofwar.com. Anime cyberpunk style meets skirmish combat in Infinity. Experience 8 high-tech factions and fight to control the human sphere at the Infinity Hub on beastsofwar.com.
So, hey everybody, I've dropped off with John and our buddy James from over in the States to have a chat about the Sands of El Alamein, isn't it? Yes?
Yes, definitely.
So, James, what exactly is it you came up with here?
Okay, well, as we all know, the Flames of War 4th Edition Bootcamp is coming up very shortly now. 4th Edition is starting off in the Desert Campaign, fought during World War II, with 2 desert-themed starter kits, one for the Germans and one for the British. And the specific mix of vehicles and artillery that we're going to be getting at the bootcamp are predominantly from a certain part of the Desert War, which of course are the Battles of El Alamein. So we're writing a quick article series about the Battles of El Alamein. So in this series, we hope to sketch out in a little bit of narrative context and historical background for the bootcamp. And we're putting out, like I said, like this short little mini-series. It's only 3 parts, dealing with these engagements and, of course, crank up some excitement for the event.
All right. Just so I know here, which sort of part of the desert are we fighting in here? I assume it's that sort of north coast of Africa sort of area?
Yeah, we're on the north coastal band of Africa, and it's, I think James will agree with it, it's predominantly flat and practically nothing in it apart from a few escarpments and stuff like that. What made it really interesting was that it was a very narrow, almost checkerboard sort of battle. Everything was in a very narrow band, because if they went further south, they were in the was it the Qatar Depression or?
Yeah. So to answer Justin's question, it's a certain time period, July to November 1942. As far as geography goes, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just the Desert War goes all over, but for this particular article series, and especially for the El Alamein battle, it's a very thin strip of. Tactically and operationally, a thin slice of land that you can actually move around and fight in. It is wide open and flat, like a tactical sense. When you zoom out a little bit, it gets to be cut up by these escarpments that you mentioned into even more narrow lanes. The desert kind of comes up from the Mediterranean coast in a number of shelves almost. separated by these escarpments that are sometimes up to 600 feet high. And it divides the desert battlefield into like these lanes that you can fight in. And only at very certain points, these passes, is there some sort of a ramp or an egress or pass between these different levels of escarpment. So the battlefields of the desert are a little more constricted, at least in like the big like generals, divisional scope, or whatever, than a lot of people think. At El Alamein, it gets really narrow because of, like you mentioned, the Qattara Depression. The Qattara Depression, for anyone who doesn't know, is this region in Egypt, about the size of Switzerland. It's this gigantic salt marsh, something. It's the terrain just drops like 600, 800 feet into this area that an army cannot move through. Units like the SAS and the LRDG would occasionally be able to get like a couple Jeeps through there, or those Chevrolet 30-weight trucks that they used to drive through there. But to try and take like an army of tanks through there is pretty much impossible. And where the Qattara Depression actually happens to sit is in a part of Egypt where the Mediterranean coast also happens to dip down. Long story short, the desert battle area goes from a couple hundred miles wide to like 40 miles wide. It becomes like this natural choke point. So it becomes a very important part of the North African desert for the two sides to fight over.
Mm-hmm. All right. Do we have sort of an idea of why you're looking at El Alamein, from what we're seeing and stuff, James? Or John, even? Do you have any ideas?
Well, why we're looking at El Alamein?
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't we look at El Alamein? It's historically, it's one of the most pivotal. There we go.
Can you
got it? Pivotal. Moments of World War II.
Right.
So it's where I like to think the African campaign in general is where the British needed a victory. So Churchill pushed very hard to get that done. The British Army went through several commanders before Bernard Law Montgomery turned up and showed everybody up for the incompetent messes that they were, apparently, to Montgomery. But
yeah,
but it's also where we found the Germans weren't invincible, and I think it's the first place we came across them where we realized these guys can be beaten. So
yeah,
I think that's why El Alamein, I think historically, is very important.
Yeah, but James, is there anything from like the miniatures and stuff that we're seeing that is sort of twigging us off that this should be El Alamein that we're kicking off in for the 4th edition drop?
Well, the vehicles in the starter kit are the first big clue. The British are getting Grants and Crusaders, the American M3 Lend-Lease Grant, and the Crusader, the British cruiser tank. Germans are getting Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs. I think the Panzer IIIs are 3Gs. And the Panzer IVs are either Gs or F2s. It's tough to tell from the photos. Some of these German variants of a certain vehicle type are very, very similar looking. It can be very tough to tell exactly what we're looking at. So I might be a little off on that. But anyway, this general mix of stuff is what you see in this specific period, with the sole exception of the 17-pounders. But we can get to that later. Also, I think Battlefront's coming out with a El Alamein battle box as part of their 4th edition rollout. And again, as John mentioned, it's El Alamein. This is when most casual gamers or like casual like history buffs or whatever are talking about the Desert War. This is what they're talking about. This is probably one of the most famous points in El Alamein. El Alamein isn't a battle; it's a series of battles. So it's a little bit of a wider period that you can aim at. And the earlier battles of El Alamein are, like John was saying, it's one of the first places, not the first place, but it's one of the first places where Rommel really gets curb stomped, and he gets stopped cold in his tracks for really the first time. And it became something of a rallying cry. That, you know what, like again, like just like John was saying, these people can be beaten.
Very interesting. Now, John, anytime you and me talk about the Desert War, we talk about it as if it's the sort of last stage of the gentlemanly warfare, where, a platoon would be captured and they would sort of have a thing in the desert where they would meet up, exchange some goods for guys, yeah?
Yeah. There was for a while I got into reading military memoirs, particularly the German side of the memoirs, and I believe it was Hans von Luck, who was out in the desert, and he really does put across in his memoirs the sort of the kindness almost of the desert campaign, because if a British patrol had been captured, for example, the Hans von Luck would go to his radio man and quietly say, send a message out on the British frequency, tell them we have their patrol, and they'll say yep. So the British will then respond and say, well, we would like them back, what do you need? And the Germans aren't saying stuff like, oh, we need more guns, we need more ammo. It's simple stuff. It's like, we need bandages, we need plasma if you've got any. Chocolate, chewing gum.
Water.
Anything. Water, yeah. Any of those amenities that both sides really struggled to have and really struggled to keep became the bartering method. So what they would do is they'd send the 2 jeeps out in the middle of the night and they'd swap things over, shake hands, go back. And I always remember one towards the end of Hans von Luck's time in Africa, where before they were leaving, he sent a radio message to them and said, good luck, fellas, hope you make it out of the war. And he got a response from the British that said, hope you do as well. And I was like, that's
sweet.
That's odd, because when you look at the rest of it, you look at the fight in the east and you look at the fight later in Normandy and France, it's none of that.
Yeah.
It's pure brutality. There's a lot of stuff going on. But the desert had this sort of little bit of human moment to it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, James, for the article series, what are you planning to cover in each of the segments?
Well, part 1 and 2 are already out. Part 1 sketches in very, very quick summary the general course of the Desert War up to this point. Very, very quickly, Mussolini sees France and Britain kind of collapsing in the summer of 1940. He figures he'll grab some quick territories from people who can't or won't fight back. Their resources are committed elsewhere, like their home country. In some places he does succeed, believe it or not. In one big place he doesn't is Egypt. The British can afford to take a pass on a lot of these battles. Modern-day Ethiopia is a big example. Not Ethiopia. Modern-day Somalia is a big example. One place that they can't give up is Egypt. And if you look at a map of the Eastern Hemisphere, you see why. Egypt has the Suez Canal. And people often ask, why are they fighting out here? It's the desert, for crying out loud. Nobody lives out there. There's no oil out there. This isn't that part of the desert. Britain has to hold on because of the Suez Canal. It holds the 2 halves of the British Empire at the time, of the British Empire together. And so they really have to fight very hard there. The Italians go into Egypt. It's Graziani's 10th Army. Again, he gets curb stomped. He basically gets annihilated. And the Italians are losing so bad that the Germans, who, even though they are fully invested in their imminent assault on the Soviet Union, this is the spring of 41, and they're already distracted by Yugoslavia, by Greece, by Crete. They've got all these other distractions. They say, now there's one more distraction. The Italians got themselves in trouble again down in North Africa. Do we have some scraps we can send down there? Send down some divisions that aren't going to be ready for Barbarossa anyway. So by definition, these are divisions that don't have all their equipment, they don't have all their tanks, their gear, their officers, their men. And it's like it's like if you're furiously building miniatures, for an upcoming event, and you have like these leftover sprues with some variants that you weren't using or whatever, you're like, here, you can have these. And Rommel takes these scraps. It's not even the full 15th Panzer Division. At the time, it's the 5th Light Division, which later becomes 21st Panzer. And he turns it into, of course, what history is going to remember as the Africa Corps. This goes back and forth. This war goes back and forth for about a year and a half. Finally comes to a head at El Alamein, and of course, that's what we're going to be exploring. And in part 1, we go into the first battle of El Alamein, which a lot of people forget. It's the one Monty wasn't there for, and it's the one that really did stop Rommel's advance once and for all. Part 2, we did a list of comparisons. We compared the 2 armies that would be facing each other off, or be facing off against each other. We have, of course, the Italians, and were they really as bad as history remembers them? No, not really, if used properly. The Germans, we look at the German army. As elite as they were, they really couldn't put up as good a fight as they wanted to at El Alamein, because most of them were desperately sick. And we look into why that happened. And the British 8th Army, which was nothing of the sort. It was not really the British 8th Army. It was an Allied army. You had full divisions of New Zealanders, Australians, Indians, South Africans. There are free French units. There's a brigade of Greeks in there. A dozen other nations, and that's not hyperbole. I could sit here and listen if I wanted to ramble all day. There's a big list of other countries that are involved in that. And finally, we compare the generals. Bernard Law Montgomery. He is widely reviled over here on this side of the water. He's, of course, very highly respected on your side of the water. The reality kind of lies in between. One thing that I wanted to make a big point on is that he doesn't deserve full credit for El Alamein. Some of his predecessors did a lot of great work and actually did inflict some strong defeats on Rommel that we wanted to call out. Erwin Rommel is this famed desert fox. He's so smart that he's foxed his army into this impossible position where he can't win. So we take a closer look at that. And finally, we look at the equipment, especially the units that we'll see at the boot camp. Now, part 3 is coming out later on this week, where we just finish up the rest of the battles of El Alamein. Again, battles plural. Starting with Alam Halfa Ridge, which is the first time you see the Grant and the Mark IV Special, the new 75mm guns on the Mark IV really come head-to-head. And finally, the 2 distinct phases of the main Battle of El Alamein, what most people are thinking of when they think of the Battle of El Alamein. The second Battle of El Alamein comes in 2 phases. That's Operation Lightfoot and Operation Supercharge.
All right, well, I'm going to ask both of you, because I know you've both played Flames of War a lot in the past.
Yep.
So, John, hopes and dreams for Mark IV. Is there anything that you're hoping we're going to see at the boot camp jump out and actually, go into the game?
I kind of want to feel like I can put down on the field large armies and feel more in control of them. I kind of feel like when I want them to do something, they're going to do it. Depending on their morale, of course, depending on how motivated they are, that sort of thing. But, if I'm taking an elite army, it's got to feel elite.
Yeah.
If I'm taking a big conscript army, it's got to be awkward to play with. But my hopes and dreams for 4th are basically, you're staying the course anyway, Battlefront. You're doing excellent work with all the World War II stuff they've done previously. I kind of felt that the amount of books that had to come out previously, the campaign books and stuff, started to get a little bit heavy.
It was a little intimidating for me.
Yeah.
I always looked at Flames of War and thought, I want to jump in.
But which book do I need?
Where is my jump off point was what I always thought of.
Yeah.
So James, what about yourself? Sort of give me a hopes and dreams wish list for Flames of War 4th edition. What's jumping out at you?
Well, I've had a bit of a sneak peek at some of the PDF versions of the 4th edition rulebooks, and there's a lot in there that I see that I kind of like. I don't want to give too much away because, of course, the 4th edition books haven't come out yet, and I haven't read the whole thing from cover to cover yet, but there's a few things that immediately jumped out at me that seem to be very positive indicators of how this game is going to go for 4th edition, especially in the desert, specific to the boot camp. And the first is terrain. There's a line in the book that comes out. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here. It comes out something like, most people think of the desert as this wide, flat, empty expanse, and nothing could be further from the truth. And I absolutely agree with that. The Desert War was, in general, and especially in El Alamein, had some very specific terrain features. The escarpments that we've been talking about, which is kind of like a cliff or a ridge. It's almost like a one-sided ridge. It's like where there's a big shelf in the terrain, and it keeps going. Wadis, which are basically riverbeds or creek beds, stream beds that are they have no water in them right now. These make great defensive positions. You can go hold down in one of these positions and shoot all day. Sandy dunes or rocky dunes are available for short cover. That kind of thing that we see in Flames of War. Other desert battlefields that might not be specifically for El Alamein, but definitely in the Desert War in World War II. You see all kinds of buildings, old forts. There's Fort Capuzzo, historically along the Egyptian-Libyan border that changed hands half a dozen times. Oases, things like that. So there's lots of great rules for terrain in there. One thing I'm particularly interested to try out is the idea of short cover giving a concealment bonus. The one thing John might be able to speak to a little bit here is in the desert, there's this tank tactic called hold down. And you can always go hold down in most battlefields, but in the desert, it becomes particularly important. Where if there's like a sand dune that in cross section kind of comes up and kind of comes down like that. You can park your tank on the reverse slope of that sand dune, even if it's only 5 feet high. It's enough. And you park your tank up at an incline and you press your gun over the barrel. And if you're the enemy coming towards that, you really only see like the top of the turret and this big gun muzzle pointing at you. It gives a tremendous bonus to your defense. The Israelis became masters of this in the 50s, 60s, and 70s throughout all the battles they fought in the Sinai and things like that. So that's for terrain. As far as units go, just one small detail that I happen to pick up, and again, it's a great example, is the different versions of the Crusader, the A-15 Crusader cruiser tank. I was very encouraged by what I saw on one of the unit cards. The Crusader 2, the first one, originally came out with a 2-pounder or 40-millimeter anti-tank gun, and the standard 3-man crew in the turret, a commander, a gunner, and a loader. Later on, they managed to squeeze a 6-pounder in there. When the 57-millimeter 6-pounder came out, they said, can we possibly upgun the Crusader? It's not really strong enough to deal with these new versions of the Mark III and Mark IV that we're seeing. They did manage to squeeze in a 6-pounder, but in order to do that, they had to take out the gunner. And now the commander also has to operate the gun, which causes all kinds of problems. It slows your rate of fire, it slows your engagement cycles, and it causes all these problems. And I played a lot of games that handle this kind of thing, like Soviets with their automatic loaders and Team Yankee and things like that, where there's like a lot of special rules and clunkiness that's built into it. In Flames of War, I just saw that the card has both versions, the 2 and the 3, and the 3 has the overworked special rule, where one or more members of the crew is overworked. The commander basically has 2 jobs. He's a commander and a gunner. It's that simple. It's right there on the card. You don't even have to open up the rule book. So I think it's a great indicator of how they've cleaned up the system, and it's going to run a lot faster, a lot smoother. Like a Team Yankee boot camp, there were people having like 6 or 8 games in that one weekend. So it definitely looks like a great system.
All right, cool. Well, we know that people that are coming to the boot camp who picked the British are getting Grants, Crusaders, 17-pounders, and 25-pounders. So. Let's talk about the Allied armor and equipment for El Alamein a bit. Are you happy, John?
I'm jumping in the bit I get to talk about tanks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, talk tank.
Right, so the Grant, essentially the Grant in its development was the stopgap, because up until then, let's talk at it from a British perspective. We were using the early model cruiser tanks, so as we were saying, the early model Crusaders and stuff like that. They weren't really designed for desert use, so they had a lot of filtration problems, a lot of air intake problems. The engines were getting overheated, the tracks weren't good enough to handle all the sand they were driving through, so there was a lot of mechanical problems with those. Valentines were the same, Matildas were the same, early Churchills kind of did the same too. But then the Grants came along, and the Grant is one of the joyous moments that came out of America, because it was the first tank that anybody in the Allied nations got where it was like, if this breaks, we can fix this. It's not a 3-day camel ride to fix a Grant if it breaks. You can unbolt the transmission, chuck it away, put a new one in a matter of hours, and away you go. The engines were the same. I can't remember if James, you might be able to back me up on this. Grant was a radial.
I
think it was either a 9-cylinder radial or it was something else. I cannot.
I don't really know about that.
Yeah, but the engines were better because they required less water to cool them. If it's a radial, it doesn't require any water to cool it. It's air cooled, which was great. They didn't have to waste their own water on that. When you go over to the likes of the Crusaders and stuff like that, they did not have the punch, as James was saying. Even when they went up to 6-pounder guns, it wasn't quite the gun they needed. But on the Grants, they had a 75mm. But the idea was that big gun, that main gun, wasn't your main gun if you were engaging other tanks. You had this pithy little turret on the top of an already 12-foot tall tank that had a 37mm in it that was meant to be the anti-tank weapon. Yeah. And a lot of British crews just went, why is that up there? Our tank is 13 feet tall. We cannot hull down because our big weapon is in the hull. If we go hull down, we're going to need to dig a 12-foot hole to put the thing into. And if that starts getting flanked, it's screwed because it can't get out of the hole we've just put it in. Then you start to see what the British were doing with artillery. And I'll give it to the British. I think out of all the Allied nations, perhaps maybe on the side of America, the British had the finest anti-tank and short light artillery in the war, potentially anyway, because we had the 25-pounder, which outranged the Americans' equivalent, which was the 105 howitzer. It outranged it by nearly a mile.
Really? Wow.
Yep. The early models of the 25-pounders had a bit.
I'm pretty sure it outranged the German 105 as well.
Yeah.
German 105 and the German 75. I think it was Mellenthin. It was Mellenthin, or maybe it was von Look again, who said, we get in these artillery duels with the British, and it's a very unpleasant feeling. I remember that was the specific phrase. To be, they're shelling us. We can't shell them until we lower our trucks back up and move them forward again. And by then, we're taking more losses. Because a truck is just a great thing to be in an artillery barrage. It's this big soft-skinned vehicle loaded with fuel and ammunition. It's, an unpleasant experience.
Yeah. So we had excellent artillery, probably, like as James just said, probably just the best artillery in the desert. Possibly bar the big stuff, like the really big stuff. I don't know how much of that the Germans brought over, and I don't think we brought a lot until we had the 5.5s or the 5.7s.
Well, I really doubt if you're going to see a Gustav down in Africa.
Well, there's that. So, anti-tank guns now, the 17-pounder confuses me a little because it only came in towards the end, wasn't it? It was late.
I've read some batteries were tested in Tunisia. They were in Africa. I just don't think they were in El Alamein.
Yeah.
But they weren't in any Fireflies yet or anything like that. They first fielded it in its traditional towed configuration. And once they brought it up into Tunisia, they quickly found that these things are going through Mark IVs like it's nobody's business. So.
All right, well, next up, obviously, we have the German side for our boot campers, right? Yep. So what they're getting is they're getting Panzer IIIs, Panzer IVs, 88s, which is the big gun, and then a
105.
10.5 howitzer.
Yep.
So what about these, John?
Well, what can you say? You have to start with the 88. The 88 is the one gun that Germany kept throughout the entire war that did not fail. It didn't fail at any of the roles it was given. It was anti-tank, it was anti-air. They mounted it in tanks because it was so successful. Obviously, Tiger 1 came about because they looked at the 88 and went, that needs to be on a tank.
Yeah.
It had, when you hear the British reports of tank units that faced 88s, they always talk about the noise. They said it sounded like a lightning strike.
Really?
It had a very sharp crack to it, and the shell, when it was in flight, had a very low hum. So you'd hear this crack in the hum as the shell went past, and it would be a very unnerving noise because you knew about a mile away there was a battery of 88s that were looking right at you.
Yeah.
So they had their own sort of fear factor, and as historians and war gamers today, they have a cool factor about them.
Yeah.
There's something about that silhouette of an 88, and you go, that's cool.
Yeah.
Onto the tanks. So Panzer IIIs, Panzer IVs.
Yeah.
These were now starting to break away from their original intended goals or their original intended roles. Because back in the Blitzkrieg, the Panzer III was your mainstay tank. It was going to fight other armoured vehicles.
Right.
The Panzer IV was meant to be the infantry support. So it was the short barrel 75 howitzer.
Yeah.
Then later versions, after that, they started to experiment with putting the Panzer III's gun into the Panzer IV.
Yeah.
Because it was starting to get up armoured and stuff. And by the time this point in the desert, they now have the Panzer IV Special, the F2 or the G, where it was the long barrel 75. It was the Pak 40, basically the Pak 40 anti-tank gun.
Yeah.
They just took that off the carriage and bolted it into the turret of a Panzer IV.
Yeah, this seems to happen a lot where they're just taking either the 88 with an anti-air gun put into the Tiger, Pak 40 has into the Panzer IV.
Yep. They were probably the two most successful guns the Germans developed, the Pak 40 and the Flak 36, the 88.
Almost all armies do this throughout the course of World War II. The British pull out the 6-pounder, they use it in a towed configuration. Hey, it works. Let's start putting it in our tanks. Yeah. The 75s, first the L42s and later the L48s or I think maybe L43s. There's the medium gauge 75s and later the L48s. They're towed guns. Hey, let's put them in a tank. The Soviets with the 85 millimeter, they put those in the T-34 85s. Even the Americans get in on it. Later in the war, we're using 90 millimeter towed guns. That's the 90 millimeter gun that winds up going in the Pershing.
Yep.
So they test it in a towed configuration first, and then once they're happy with it, they start bolting it into turrets.
Yeah, I think the main point though is you'll possibly agree with me, James, is that the Germans did it better because the Germans did it quicker.
Germans definitely did it more. Yeah. They had more practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mark III starts off with a 37 millimeter gun in like 1938 or whenever it first came out.
Yeah.
The Mark III, so we have at the boot camp, have the new 5 centimeter or 50 millimeter gun that I think is an L42 as far as its length goes. And there's a whole big spiel about why the length of the barrel is so important. The Mark III Js, which I don't think we get in the starter set, but these I think are the Mark III specials that the British were starting to get a little bit afraid of, had the L60 50 millimeter gun. And the longer the barrel, the higher the muzzle velocity, the longer the range, and muzzle velocity equals speed of the shell, and speed of the shell is how hard it's going to hit your armor and actually break through your tanks. Yeah. And this is why the upgrade from the short little howitzer L24 7.5 centimeter gun in the early Mark IVs was such a big improvement to jump to the longer 75s that we started to see in the Mark IV specials.
Yeah, because what you find generally with the Germans is, as I was saying at this point, these tanks were out of their roles. They'd sort of switched roles, and you're starting to find that the Panzer IIIs were beginning to be phased out, but they were still being used as a sort of either a backup Panzer unit or a reconnaissance unit or something like that. They weren't always at the front. The Panzer IVs did that. And that's where you see I guess it's the first inklings of main battle tanks starting to squeeze in, because you see the Panzer IV started the war and finished the war. Yeah. It was still in combat from day one to day end. And I think I could argue it was one of the first main battle tanks, because it just grew and grew and grew and became a better vehicle overall.
Okay, well...
the Mark IV, the T-34, and maybe the Sherman are just like these general purpose workhorses that you see.
Yep. So...
Right, well, let's close it up, because there are 4 final questions that need to be asked for this sort of era of the war, right? So, number 1, what made Alamein such an important battle? What was really the turning point within it? What came after it? And, hang on, what would be different if Rommel had won? What would have changed there? So, James, what do you think?
What made El Alamein an important battle? Well, it was historically, as far as its historical course goes, it was pretty much the end of the Africa Corps, and which was a very small part. Rommel is associated with command of the Africa Corps. He commanded the Africa Corps for like 2 months in early 1941. Almost immediately, he was promoted to the next level of command, and his force was expanded to be a panzer group, and then later into a panzer army, and then later on, Tunisia would become an army group. So as far as the Africa Corps goes, it's really only 2 or 3 divisions. They get really badly beaten up, almost to non-existence in El Alamein. Some survivors make it back to Tunisia, where they get rebuilt and they have some more battles out there. But it really is the end of the road for Rommel. There's a lot of fighting. This goes into the next question, as far as what comes after El Alamein. The second battle of El Alamein takes place October 23rd to November 5th or so, 1942. At the end of that week-long battle or so, the Germans are in full retreat. And not like the typical German retreat where they're falling back a few miles, poised for a counterattack, and they're running 1,100 miles. Some of the longest retreats in military history. They just get on the road and truck it, man, as fast as they can. They go all the way out of Egypt, all the way across Libya. These are big countries, and they don't stop until they get to the Mareth line along the southern border between Tunisia and Libya. Is the first time they can catch their breath, turn around, fall back on some reserves, and actually offer some kind of resistance again. By that time, the Americans and even more British have landed behind them way over in Morocco and Algeria. This is Operation Torch. Operation Torch. The same week, practically, this is November 7th and 8th, 1942. So now Rommel, and now they're sending down other field marshals, other generals with more armies. This is when Panzer Army Africa becomes Army Group Africa. And now they're fighting like sort of a 2-front war. This is where Patton comes in. We have some disastrous American defeats. I mean, poor Americans, man. This is their first real ground combat in World War II. They stride into the war thinking they're going to fix everything. We're going to show everybody how it's done, and 10th Panzer, 15th Panzer, 21st Panzer, they just, no, new guy. Sit down and we'll show you how this is done real quick. Sidi Bouzid, Tabessa Gap, Kesserine Pass, famously. Anyone who's seen the movie Patton, and the credits come up at the very beginning of the movie, and you just see like this wide field of apocalyptic American destruction. American bodies, American tanks blown up, American equipment abandoned and destroyed. This is the aftermath of some of these battles. Fortunately, Americans are quick learners, and we kind of come back really quickly, and we kind of crank ourselves up to the level of the British. We get the French back on our side. The French in this part of Africa are mostly an Axis power by this point. I'm sorry to say, Vichy France there was a lot of confusion there politically. But after Operation Torch, they have an opportunity to come. Okay, you know what? We started the war as an Allied power. We're going to finish as an Allied power, and they become this great partner in Allied victories going forward through Sicily, Italy, and then mainland Europe. As far as what could have happened if Rommel had won El Alamein, I guess it depends on which El Alamein you're talking about. If he had won the first battle of El Alamein, a lot could have been different. If he captured enough supplies, he was really starving for supplies at this point. The British never really lost control of the Mediterranean. They never lost Malta. They could never force Spain into the war, so they could never close down Gibraltar. The British always owned the Mediterranean. The Italian Navy was never really able to get too much traction there. So Rommel always had tremendous supply problems.
No, fair enough.
And he usually won. Some of the reasons he kept winning these battles is he would win these battles and capture all the British stuff.
Yeah.
And then he would be able to push on.
Yeah. All right. Well, James, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing you're coming across next week. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely on my way. I'll be there Thursday, I think. Yeah.
All right. Sweet. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you, mate. Hopefully, we're going to have some great games over the weekend, guys. Get your comments in below. Are you coming to the boot camp? Are you excited to be coming across? We'll move on here, and we will see you in the next one.
Fight for the Iron Kingdoms as a warcaster. Take control of the mighty jacks, arcane devices, and dark sorceries to bring the fight to the War Machine Hub on beastsofwar.com. Progress comes to a world of magic as science and the arcane combine to make marvels. Meet steampunk inventors and orc mystics at the Volsun Hub on beastsofwar.com.
So exciting times for World War II players as the Flames of War stuff really starts to ramp up. I've got to say, we've been having a sneak peek at the plastics that our boot campers are going to get, and it's like, wow! Awesome stuff. Absolutely awesome. Right, Ben.
Yes.
We are going to get you an intro for this, man. We really are. But it is time for what the f***'s going on in the world? It's time for the news. Ben, tell me what is happening.
Okay, so the first bit of news is coming out of Games Workshop, and it's all sort of focused around what's happening with the Vanguard Chamber. So you might remember we've had a look at these guys before. They're the guys that are wearing, the wolf pelts and stuff like that. They head out in front of the rest of the Stormcast Eternals.
Yeah.
Well, we got to look at their next big release for the Vanguard Chamber, which was all based around the Vanguard Paladors and their Lord Aquila. So this is their sort of cavalry option that comes into the game.
I have to say, Ben, do you see that model in the front?
Yep.
I am so in love with that model. The face, the features on that model. I know I was gurning and complaining about the face of Gulliman the last episode that we put out, but that face is just fabulous. I love the griffins. And I love the poses. It's just so dynamic. But that face is just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. If I could give you it, GW, I would give you a standing ovation for that. That's how much that has got me.
Can I make one point?
Yes.
That's not a griffin. Griffins have wings.
Well, Griff Dog then.
Well, yeah, these are well, in the world of Age of Sigmar, you have the Griff Hound, which are the little tiny guys that sort of bound alongside their masters, and then you have these creatures called Griff Chargers, and they're sort of a little bit more of like the grown-up version of the Griff Hound, effectively, and they're a lot more infused with magic, and they're sort of background sort of ties into the way that they play on the tabletop as well, because they can sort of effectively make themselves disappear and reappear on different areas of the board. They have this ability called etheric wind, which allows them to sort of effectively leap using magical powers and sort of appear at different points. So they're going to be very good for sort of controlling objectives and things like that, and reacting to problems on the tabletop. And it's quite interesting as well, because it sort of gives the Stormcast Eternals a little bit more of a sort of tactical nuance again. So they're not just going to be like this group that sort of marches forward relentlessly. They're going to be appearing all over the place and attacking you and ambushing from different angles and things.
Yeah.
And obviously they're led by the Lord Aquila as well, who's sort of a bit more of a chunky Stormcast Eternal riding his Griff Charger too. I prefer the version of him without the helmet on. I think that's the coolest version of him. But yeah, some good stuff from that front for the Stormcast Eternals.
I like him with the helmet, I've got to say. Other than that, all I can say is, don't get smart with me, boy. I have heard. Listen.
Yeah.
I have heard that in the next 2 years they're going to genetically produce a mammoth. Okay. Wait.
Internet gets angry at you.
I'm going to go onto Amazon and I'm going to order me one of those mammoths, and you're going to mate with it, and you're going to hope that he doesn't have ethereal wind, or you'll be dead. And then we will see what a Mad Justin or a Justoth looks like.
No.
No, that's. I've got to say that is a fabulous, fabulous release. Lloyd went and bought himself. What are they called? They're not called vampire counts anymore. What are they called?
Oh God, their name escapes me now, but I know it.
Skeletons.
Lloyd wanted an undead army, so he went after the old vampire counts force, which is now as a new starter box.
Yeah, he got the new Age of Sigmar undead starter box.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he's been going at it. He's going, oh, I love these, and they are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So my hope is, I went also and I picked up the General's Handbook.
Yeah.
So my hope is that quietly myself and Lloyd get some brother games. Which we rarely, I'm normally playing him or you're playing Lloyd or whatever. Myself and Lloyd actually rarely get to have a brother game. I can't remember the last one that we played. So we're really looking forward to, I'm going to get my Stormcast Eternals rocking. Either that or I'm going to do something with the Uruk or maybe something with Chaos. I don't know yet. But I'm really looking forward to
I've actually already got a Chaos
going.
Force.
Well, you're not invited.
Oh,
It's brother game.
Dude, you told me I've been like family to you.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're like the other brother that nobody talks about. Okay? let me and Lloyd get a game in.
Right.
Let me and Lloyd get a game in, because I know that if you get involved, I'll get beat. Because you're getting too good at this game in malarkey.
No. Hang on. You consistently beat me on camera, Warren.
Yes, but this won't be on camera, so I will consistently lose. Right. The other Games Workshop news that we had, it's going to be quite Games Workshop heavy. Some of this is the new Warhammer Quest. Okay, is out now. I'm a little confused about this. I really like what I see, but. The question I have to ask, Ben, is this an expansion of the existing one that's there, or a new standalone box set? Because I get the impression that the rules are different in this game, and it's a different feel of a game.
Yeah, so this is Shadows Over Hammerhole that we talked about before on the Weekender, and you've seen it pop up in the news. But this is its own standalone product, effectively. But it'll carry over the same basic rule structure from Silver Tower.
Yeah.
So you'll have the same dice mechanic for the heroes and the way that they react. There's still behavior tables and things. But the big change in Shadows Over Hammerhole is that you're also including now a one versus many aspect. So in this now you have a games master who controls all of the creatures and the villains, and then you have the other players playing as the heroes.
Yeah.
So it's no longer driven by a sort of almost random behavior table. In fact, actually, even the dungeons themselves are laid out ahead of time rather than being randomly revealed. So it's got a lot more of a structured feel to it.
Yeah.
One of the other big things that they talked about in terms of the Games Master is that they not only have control over a little bit of how the narrative comes across as well, so, you know, very much in keeping with sort of old Warhammer Quest.
Yeah.
But they're also encouraged by Games Workshop to sort of override the behavior tables as well. So if you're sort of not, you know, if you're new to it, then you can use those tables to help you along. But if you're a very experienced player of these kind of games, then you can sort of just do your own thing and move the creatures around as you like and use their different abilities and stuff. So it's going to be probably a lot more challenging as well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
one of the other big things that they're carrying over from, again, sort of old Warhammer Quest, is that they're going to be including a lot more stuff for you to do out of your dungeon delving. So you'll be able to go and visit traders and do sort of little role-play encounters and things like that too. Sort of explore the sort of shadowy areas of Hammerhal that are sort of a little bit more, not necessarily a lot more of the fighting, but sort of the other side of things as well. So you get to learn a little bit more about the world of Age of Sigmar, which is quite cool in this kind of thing. But yeah,
nice.
It's a new take on the idea of what they were trying to do with Warhammer Quest, but it's got the same sort of basic mechanics going on there as well. So it'll be very easy to translate your heroes from one to the other and back again.
Well, this has left me in a dilemma, right? Anybody that knows me knows that I'm an absolute sucker for dungeon crawling, okay? I would sell my soul for dungeon crawling. I love it that much. However, I didn't buy into the new Warhammer Quest, okay? Part of me because it looked a bit odd to me. It looked a bit, at the time, kind of not what I expected a dungeon crawler would be. And there was other ones on the market and stuff at the time, and it didn't particularly scratch my itch until I saw the minis. And how often does that happen with a workshop product? You look at it and you go, "Ooh," and then you see the minis and you go, "Oh." In particular, there was a couple of minis in the first version of this, so not this set.
All right, sorry,
okay?
I thought you were
Silver
No,
Tower.
I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about Silver Tower.
Okay.
When I finally did see the minis in Silver Tower, they weren't even the most spectacular, but the ones that totally just made me go, oh, was the six-legged goblin guys. Okay, they were really creepy.
Yep.
They were like little ant goblin guys, but they were so fucking fantastic. I mean, as a concept, I was like, oh, give it to me now. I just loved it. And then the other one that just absolutely caught me, it was just a single mini in the box, was a book with legs.
Yeah.
How stupid do I feel? I love the book with legs, but the way it was sculpted just blew me away. You had these little pair of legs, and then you had a spine coming out of the legs, which was basically like a human-esque spine, but that spine formed the spine of the book.
Yeah.
And I just looked at it and I thought, these minis absolutely come to life when you see them. So although the rules and stuff like that didn't particularly grab me, the minis, I just thought I could spend countless hours telling stories around these minis. So I'm now in the dilemma in that the new one, what is it, Hammerhall?
Shadows over Hammerhal.
Shadows over Hammerhal. This grabs me. Okay, this is now going right back into the territory that Warhammer Quest absolutely nailed back in the 90s when it came out. So I'm looking at this thinking this is absolutely on my must buy for a dungeon crawler list or a dungeon crawler game.
This kind of focuses in a little bit on sort of a lot more longevity potentially as well for this version of it, because with Silver Tower you could only do so much with the random element of things with that, whereas with this, because they're allowing this more structured feel to things, there's no reason why in future issues of White Dwarf you couldn't see new adventures being published and things like that, new characters for you to play as and things, and new ways for the villains to be used, and background stuff too. So it should be very interesting to see where it's going. I personally quite enjoyed Silver Tower, even though it was a very random experience.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting, and it was very, very well themed. That was the main thing about it. That really struck me. But I think this is going to have a little bit more of that gritty feel to it, and I think it might appeal to a lot of people who loved the old world as well as Age of Sigmar. So
if this turns out the way I expect it to turn out, this is my reason for buying Silver Tower. So I want to get this and Silver Tower. I will be effectively dumping a lot of the rules and stuff from Silver Tower and just focusing in on this. But the tiles, the cards, the miniatures will just allow me to really expand out and explore. This is what I was asking for 3 years ago. Well, for Warhammer, I said, Warhammer at that point was so big, so complicated, so hard to get into. It was like a big brick wall. And I was saying at the time, it needed a new Warhammer Quest to try and allow people to buy stuff from across the range. This is what it
I
does.
This is what I was trying to say. Whenever we were in England, you showed me your old collection from your original one, and you collected stuff from every single army because you wanted it monsters for your dungeon.
Yes.
You know,
but that's the whole point of the dungeon crawler is, you know, it's about what you meet down there. You know, and it's like I have a little collection of Schleck dragons, right? I love buying these Schleck dragons because they get met down my dungeon. And this is just right into that. But the Silver Tower didn't feel just like a dungeon crawler. There was something that just didn't float my boat with it. But this one totally has, and by doing that, it has unlocked Silver Tower for me, because now I absolutely must have Silver Tower to get those little six-legged guys, goblin guys.
So you can meet them down the dungeon.
And that little with the legs and the boot, because he is so going to be mine now.
Right.
Because if I get to override the table, you're going to meet him at every opportunity, and the shit he's going to do to you, Justin, is nothing normal.
So is this a book that reads itself to you in your dungeon now, that tells you a horrifying story that changes everything?
Justin, right? You find yourself in a dark room.
Oh God, here we go.
The little book runs up to you and goes, "Here, Justin, look at this." You see where I'm going with this? We're going to have some fun.
This should be good.
Yeah. Anyway, when's it out, Ben?
It's out today, so yeah, you can go and pick it up now. It was on pre-order last weekend. It'll be out right now, I think. So
okay, well that's the end of the show. I'm away to go and get that. Okay, right. We have some more news. RumbleSlam is now available to pre-order. Yes. You've spent some time with this.
I've played this game, and this is a really, really fun one. So the whole idea is, it's fantasy wrestling.
Yes.
So you've got your humans and your orcs, and they're all in leotards and all beating the hell out of each other.
Yeah.
And then you have your different types of fighters. So you've got humans, ogres, dwarfs. Really fun game. This I like because you can actually take it as far as you want, because you could play on the mat, or you can get the big MDF actual arena.
Oh, I love that.
But it's hilarious.
It's called a ring, Justin.
Yes.
It's called a ring.
It's not long since I've looked at wrestling, but if you're playing something like the orcs with the troll, you see trying to get the big guy up onto the turnbuckle to do the flying dive or drop kick onto somebody. It's hilarious. Really fun game. Really worth checking out the Let's Play, because I had a lot of fun with the guys.
We have a Let's Play for it, yes?
The video is in this post. Ta-da!
Okay, right. Well, if you go to this post, there's the Let's Play in
Exactly,
there.
and you'll find the link to that post in the description below. Really fun game, really worth taking a look at. It's a pure and pretzel game where you and your mates can sit down and just have a great laugh.
Love it. Yep. Love it. It's available now for pre-order. How long before it comes out, Ben?
I think it's a couple of weeks now, but it shouldn't be too long. I think it's just sort of coming out in the sort of beginning bit of March, so you don't have too long to wait. Sorry. Yeah,
okay. So. Right, we have important news from Salute.
Yes,
that we need to get across. What is happening with the guys in the South London Warlords?
Okay, so the big thing they wanted to share with us is that they've not only shown off what's going to be like the epic Best in Show prize for the painting competition, which is that skull chalice that you see there, which is pretty awesome. I mean, if you're going to win anything, you want something to drink the blood of your enemies from. That's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
But also, the winner of Salute as the Best in Show will get a ticket to go over to Crystal Brush in 2017 to compete for their big huge prizes as well. So they're going to pay for like airfare and things as well. So that's a pretty massive win for someone who's going to Salute if they get that.
Very
cool indeed.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
So they get the whole nine, all expenses paid trip to participate in the Crystal Brush.
And then when you're over at Crystal Brush, the actual cash prizes for that are astronomical.
I know, crazy.
The cash prizes of $10,000 to $2,000 and $1,000, I think, for first, second, and third. So yeah, it's a massive accolade if you get over there to go and join in with that. And as we've seen in the past, Crystal Brush is amazing, and so is Salute as well. Always see something fantastic from the painting side of things for there. So
important question.
Yes.
Can you enter the entry you entered into Salute, or do you have to enter a brand new miniature?
You could probably do the same entry. I don't think they want.
Okay.
Well, there you have it. It's not long to Salute now, guys. So if you haven't already got your tickets, head on over to the Salute website and start booking up your tickets. On the topic of shows, Well, I managed to get a chat with the guys from UK Games Expo to find out what's going on. Where do you find out what's going to be happening at the UK Games Expo later, a little later in the year? They even have a Starship Simulator. We all have to get a go on this. But look, I'm talking with Tony and Richard. We'll be right back after we tell you about these hubs.
From Viking halls to the cities of the future, terrain buffs will love our foreground hub. Watch gaming tables of all genres come to life at beastsofwar.com. Humanity has been driven from Earth, but now it's time to take it back. Join the Reconquest and fight the Scourge on the Drop Zone Commander Hub at beastsofwar.com.
Welcome back, guys. I'm joined by Tony and Richard from the UK Games Expo to get an update on just what's happening at the event. So, guys, UK Games Expo taking place on the 2nd to the 4th of June. Tickets are now available. So, what is the situation with tickets? And what kind of tickets can people buy?
Well, they can get their entrance tickets now to get into the show, generally. And event tickets, most of the event tickets are still available. There are a few events which are close to selling out or sold out. One or two of the role-playing games, one or two of the live entertainment events. Otherwise, all the rest of the events are still, as tickets are available. But as we move towards the show now, things start to become sold out and bought up. So it's a good time to get going with it now, really.
So if anybody was planning on going to the show, they can hit the UK Games Expo website, get their entry ticket, and then browse through the various events and things like that, and get whatever additional tickets that they need for any of the additional kind of big stuff that they might want to see. Yeah.
Yes. So you buy your entrance tickets on the website, and then if you go through under events on the website, you'll see miniatures, board games, CCGs. Every sort of hobby game event is there, and you can pick and choose what you want from that and the live events, etc. So again, with some of the role-playing games, as Richard said, a fair number of those are sold out because they're 4 to 6 players, so a lot of them sell out quickly, but we're adding more. So for instance, Paizo have sent us a sort of world exclusive special event that's going to happen at the Expo. So that's sort of 60 to 100 players simultaneously.
Wow.
RPG. D&D Epic are doing the same as well. So if you want to pile in on that fairly quickly, because that's I spoke to the guys who played in one last year, and they said, it's a real experience, not something you can do at home or anywhere else. Yeah. So getting involved in, a sort of 100-player RPG where everybody affects everybody. We have teams of GMs that run it. It's a real event. So those are happening on Saturday night. So what you don't want to do is wait till you get to the weekend and then find that a lot of this stuff has been pre-booked and sold. So now's the time to go and get your stuff.
Yeah.
Call of Cthulhu.
There's the Call of Cthulhu Masters are about to be released, which is a special Call of Cthulhu RPG event. So that's great fun. Just one word, Pokemon. We're running a Pokemon regional, so that's a 1,000-player event. So it's the first one of these we've held. It's being run by the Tournament Centre.
Yeah.
Now, that's the only ticket you can't buy on our website.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have their own registration system, etc. We're hosting the tournament for them. If you want to play Pokemon in the regional, you need to go to the Tournament Centre's website.
Although we've got links on our website to point you forward.
If you come to us, then they'll link you through there. And you'll get your Pokemon ticket. And with that comes free entry into the show as well, if you're playing in the Pokemon.
Fantastic. I'm going to come back to the events in a minute, but for any traders, there's still a few months between now and June. I know that you guys, the show has got even bigger again. But if any traders were out there and were interested in hopping on board with you and getting into the show, do you still have a few spaces left? Have they still got time to contact you guys to be able to work something out?
They do, but I think time is of the essence. I get emails saying, "Is there any rush?" And you say, "Well, not if you don't mind being in the toilet."
Yeah.
Basically, we're now down to I think probably 10% of the hall is left now, perhaps. So there's a lot of space that is going. So I think every week I'm adding on maybe 15 or so new exhibitors. So the space will just fill up, and we will still be filling that up in April or May. But what's available, where the choices of location becomes limited, of course.
Yes, I mean we've added this year 40% more floor space.
Yeah.
So there's just over 14,000 square meters in Hall 1. We've taken every inch of it. So we're now down, if looking at our map, to the sort of bottom quarter of the hall. But this week we've had some inquiries from some quite exciting exhibitors. We can't say anything yet because they're still finalising, but some of them are looking at 100, 200 square metres. So we can go from having a bit of space to no space fairly quickly. So we say get in now, get in while the going's good.
Yeah, I want to say, so if any of you traders out there are interested in getting into the UK's largest tabletop gaming show, what's the attendance, the projected attendance for this year, guys?
Okay, it's always difficult, but at the moment, our tickets, and we do this on a sort of day-for-day sales. So we open ticket sales for attendees on December the 1st. And so we track then sales in terms of value from then. At the moment, we're tracking at 193% compared to last year, so double the number.
And what was last year's number?
25,000 attendants, 12,500 uniques. Now, that number will fluctuate. We expect on our projections to come in probably round about 40 to 50% more than last year. Based on that percentage will slowly come down as we get closer to the show. But then, to be perfectly honest, last year on the Friday, we were so surprised by the on-the-day turn-ups that we had to print tickets on an inkjet. So we never know. I mean, as far as we can see, hotels are booked for miles around. However, if you go to the website, plenty of places you can stay that are only 5 minutes away by train or taxi ride. We're looking at putting perhaps a minibus service in on the Friday and Saturday nights to get you back to your hotel, even if you've had perhaps one beverage too many. Which I know never happens with anybody at the Expo, but just in case, we want you to get back to your hotel safely with all your dice intact. I think it's just going to be massive.
If you are a trader out there and you fancy getting involved in this, it's definitely worth a look. But if you're going to do it, get stuck in now. I want to talk about some of the events. I'm just going to rhyme a few off here. So the Fantasy Flight Game Europeans is taking place. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yes, we held the Yavin Open last year, which was an X-Wing tournament, largest in the world for a single day event for them, and they came and contracted with us to do their Continentals. So they have the American one that's held at Gen Con. And that used to be the World Championships until somebody pointed out only Americans go. So it was a bit like the Super Bowl. So they were declaring themselves world champions. So now they've gone for these Continentals. And we're holding for the next 2 years the European Continentals. So they've got 7 tournaments from X-Wing to Star Wars LCG, Armada, Imperial Assault. I'm running these off the top of my head. Android Netrunner. And these are huge tournaments with great prizes, including qualifications and travel and stuff to the world.
So there is a chance you could win a trip to the US for the world's tournament.
To be honest, with the tournaments we got this year, you could plan your holidays with it. You could win Ticket to Ride or Days of Wonder and get or if you win, was it Catan? Is that meant to be in Vienna? You could do a world tour just by playing games and not pay for a penny of it.
Awesome. Well, we know you've got the Pokemon stuff going on. You also have the Catan UK Championship as well. Carcassonne UK Championship and the Agricola UK Championship. So
those qualifiers for the World Finals.
What about live entertainment events? You have some of those going on as well.
Well, these are areas that we sort of started up a couple of years ago as a bit of a punt, really, didn't we? That have proven to be quite popular, really. So these are live games where the audience participate in some fashion, and there are usually some of our guests and things of some of the players as well. So we've got several people from the Dice Tower, John Kovalik, who's the artist from Munchkin, and the Dork Tower is one of our guests this year, and a number of our guests will be playing the game.
Yeah.
But potentially the fourth player could be the studio audience. So examples of this are Live Pandemic, which was a great success last year with one of the Colin Baker, who used to be Doctor Who, of course, and Tom Vassell from the Dice Tower. And but the idea is that the audience play a role as well. And they vote.
So this year we've got Nightmare, which is
Live,
we did the first one. That's sold out. 300 seats have gone.
Yeah.
So Nightmare, the 1980s sort of television show.
Love it. Love it.
With the
Proper,
helmet
yeah,
covers.
proper blast from the past there. Yeah.
I go with these guys. Well, that's sold out, and they're going to run a second show.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, these things are a bit of a punt because Richard often goes to the Edinburgh Fringe and comes back, and I said, I've seen these people.
Yeah.
And I look at him like, are you sure? You never know whether you're going to break even on some of these things just to get them in, or whether people want to take part. But Nightmare Live has proved to be very popular.
Yeah.
So if you want a ticket for Nightmare Live, first one sold out already. So
sold 30 of the 300.
So that 10% of those have already gone. So you might, again, don't turn up on the weekend thinking you'll pick one of those tickets up.
Yeah.
We've got, of course, John Robinson doing Darkroom again, which has proved massively popular. What other live events have we got? We've got a concert. We've got the concert.
There's a concert as well, yeah.
Yes, we've got Shadows of Esteron, the Birmingham Philharmonic, a bit of culture, because we thought we've seen our attendees. They're obviously culturally aware.
Yep.
Desperate for a bit of classical music. That's what they're hammering the doors down for. So we've got the Birmingham Philharmonic with the French guys from Shadows of Esteron doing a concert. We've been negotiating now to get a piano in over the last week, haven't we?
You will have to save me a ticket for that. I definitely have to get a ticket for that one, because I reckon I could do with a bit of culture.
So that's on the Saturday night. And I mean, look, that is, it's one of those things which I think you wouldn't naturally plump for first of all.
Yeah.
But unless you've heard a live classical musicians, then to be honest, you haven't lived.
Yeah.
No, I think it's only an hour and 90 minutes or so of your time. And,
it's 90 minutes of your time. It's 15 quid. You won't get, to be honest, you won't get to hear classical musicians of this quality.
Yeah. At that price,
I know the concerts, they're doing a tour of this. They'll be doing it at Essen. They're doing it in France, where they get 500 people turning up.
Yeah.
So we've got about 270 seats. So again, just, there is something for everyone.
Absolutely.
Live, RPG Live, which is one of these live games where they're playing a role-playing game, fantasy role-playing game with guests and the players. The audience participate by holding up voting forms, and
so the live RPG, so sort of mass RPG.
Yeah.
These are all these live entertainment. And then there's the Starship Bridge Simulator, of course.
Yes, there is.
Which is you are the crew of a starship, and you become either you're the engineer or the captain or the weapons operator or helm or whatever, and you have a mission to do. This is done via computer, but also a live thing. So they play out a mission. So you've got to explore the asteroid belt, find the pirates or something.
Yeah, I mean, these are all things that you just can't do at home.
Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
unless you are slightly unhinged.
Well, look, guys, thank you so much for the update. We'll be back to you in a few weeks to as we start to get closer and closer to the show to see what else is coming online. But the bottom line for you guys is, if you're fancy getting stuck into UK Games Expo and getting the most out of it, you probably want to be doing it now. Tony, Richard, thanks, guys, and we'll have you back on the show very soon.
It's good to speak to you, Warren. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, guys, let's tell you about some hubs.
Become a general of mighty armies at the Kings of War Hub. Take command of elves, dwarves, and orcs in this game of massed fantasy combat on beastsofwar.com. Flames of War brings you the battles of World War II in epic 15mm scale. Go to the hub on beastsofwar.com to find news, tactics, and tutorials about the game.
Massive thanks to Richard and Tony for getting in touch. And then, of course, I filmed that with the guys. and then the big news then drops after that.
Yeah.
That Games Workshop have also signed up to UK Games Expo.
Interesting.
A stand of 150 square meters. So a lot of Sigmar and 40k, I would imagine, going to UK Games
Now,
Expo.
with it being such a big show, I wonder if there's going to be a reveal at it. Possibly because it's a big show.
We don't know. I have reached out to the team over at GW who's behind it to see if they've any details or whatever that they can spill between now and the event. As and when we hear back from them, I will definitely report it back to you guys. But
we're under the 100 days,
stuff. Yeah, it's 100 days to go.
I think we're under it now. I think we're under that
UK
mark.
Games Expo. So, if you haven't booked your tickets, we're going to be trying to do a meetup with Beasts of War community members in one of the pubs. So we will find a bar where we can meet up and have some beers. And
where we're based, you're probably going to end up either having to get a train in to the city centre, or we can all meet up in the Hilton, because I know where it's being held.
It might be the Hilton. Other than that, if you're a trader in the tabletop gaming industry, remember they do still have bits of space left. In fact, it's very interesting because a little bird tells me that the spaces that they have left are in and around the Games Workshop stand. Because Workshop came in a bit later, so they took up a big lump at the back of the thing, and the other space they have is in and around that. So if you've ever kind of thought, oh, I could get a stand right next door to them, go and contact the guys at UK Games Expo, because you still might have a chance of being able to get your stand and get your wares there in front of people. I'm excited about it. It's
going to be an interesting show.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Right. Other big news. God, this week has been blowing us away. Other big news is giant killer robots.
Heavy hitters, yes, from Weta Workshop.
From Weta Workshop has hit Kickstarter. I am so enthused about this, but not for the reasons most of you think.
Well, you can all guess why I am.
Yeah, well, I'm never really been into the whole kind of mecha robot-y kind of stuff. Okay. But I tell you what I am into. I'm into Weta Workshop in a big way. And whenever I saw, we saw the Adam Savage video and stuff like that.
Yeah, with the 3-ups this tall.
And we learned a few months back that Weta were going to go down this route and wanted to produce a game. And I've got to say, the inner geek in me nearly cried. I just thought, I love this. And I'll tell you why I love it. I have such admiration. You know, there are groups of people and companies out there who they do a great job, you know, and they're big and they're successful and stuff like that. But there's very few like Weta Workshop that have touched you in so many ways growing up. Yeah, you know, in the special effects and stuff that they have produced. And when I learned that they were going to start throwing their hat into the ring on tabletop gaming, my heart just leaped, because it means they're one of us. They are geeks like us. We always knew it. We always suspected it. But to now have that to me, it's almost like a bond. It's like a bond to the guys that work in that studio over there, where it just warms me. You know, it's just so nice to be able to share something that with them, because everything else that they produce in the movies and stuff like that is like, it's so up there.
Even the collectible stuff that just blows your mind. It's just like, wow.
And you're just looking at it and you love it. It's geeky, but it's like so up on a pedestal. But then when they get involved in our industry and the stuff that we love, I'm just looking at it and I'm just going, they're one of us. They're one of us. It's so cool. So, you know, aside from the subject matter, which we're going to have a look now through the preview box. Yep. I'm just so over the moon, man. just like, oh, I'm just so happy to be here. So, right, let's crack open the box and have a look at some giant killer robots.
The actual work they put into the preview box is beautiful, because look at this. Yeah. Look at this. Actually, bring up the camera here.
Okay, it's a custom-built box.
Yes.
They've custom templated and sprayed it and everything.
Yes.
Justin, they wanted to make you feel special.
First thing I come to, a comic book.
Yes.
This just drops me straight into the world. That easy 5-minute jump off point where I can open the box, sit down for 5 minutes, and know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Hell yes. Moving through a rulebook which is not overly thick. I learned to play this game on my own in half an hour.
Really?
30 minutes and I was ready to play.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
That's no bullshit now. That's
30 minutes, I was ready to play.
Okay. Right.
Pretty
Okay.
epic.
You then got the game board. Now this is actually quite the meaty game board, so I'm not going to unfold all of it.
Yeah.
But the whole concept is you're fighting in the ruins of the old cities of Earth, right?
Right. Okay.
Now, Earth is rebuilding, of course, and what has to happen whenever you've got an old city in the way of a new city? You have to tear it down, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have the mega corporations in this world decide, well, we're tearing them down anyway. Let's make a sport out of this, you know.
Right.
So they take their big demolition bots,
Uh-huh.
load them out with some weapons, you know, paint guns, missile systems, things like that, and it's just like, right, Saturday Night Live, here we go.
So let me take a step back.
Yeah.
Do we know what happened to Earth?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I haven't learned that yet.
Okay. So, but the cities are ruined.
Yeah, and now the
These
mega
are big
corporations-
kind of demolition bots.
Yeah.
But the corporations have thought we can turn this into entertainment.
Damn right, yeah.
Right. Okay.
And so you've got 4 main corporations that are going to be taking part in this, right? We only have 2 in this demo kit.
Yeah.
Thunder Happy and another one, I forget the name right now.
Uh-huh.
But it's basically just, you're running around, you can shoot and kill each other if you want. Or you can tag the buildings. And if you
Right.
tag the buildings and get enough tags on them, you get to crush them. And you actually
Right.
take the buildings off the table, put a rack marker down there, and show that you've claimed that territory as your rack for the night.
So what is the basic objective and premise of the game then?
So you have 2 ways to win, right?
Yep.
Kill the opponents. Destroy 4 buildings, and that's it.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Show
So-
us some more components then.
Yeah. Now, I want to jump straight into the best bit of this, all right? Which is the minis. Because Weta Workshop, you know how to do gorgeous stuff, guys.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Look at this. So this is one of your giant killer robots, right?
Uh-huh.
So you have these guys. These are like your big stars. These are the guys who are rocking about. All the cameras, all the lights are on them, and they are just going to war, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So you've got this, and you've got this one. Now, these are only 2 of them. There are more.
Yeah.
And then from there, if I lift the next layer of the tray out, you get more. So, whoop, just try not to drop
Okay.
stuff.
Right. Let me move that
Right.
out of the way. Yeah.
Each of these guys has a support unit with them.
Yeah.
3 types, right? So I'll move this one out of the way for now. So this is your main one. You've got a scout,
Yeah.
an assault, and a repair. And these guys, you can deploy them onto the field as actual little extras to help you play through the game.
Right.
So the game breaks down into like 5 segments. So the first thing you're going to do every round is you're going to deploy one of these little guys. But it's got energy management to it. Because every round you have 5 energy to use, right?
Yeah.
You use that all up, you can still do more, right? You can go -5. But for every point under you go, you're going to take a point of damage. And the way the damage is worked out is from a card deck, which as you take damage, you lose cards from the deck or your hand or whatever. And whenever you have no more cards, well, basically your systems are overloading, crashing, you know, so you don't blow up, but you just go, woo,
Yeah.
and done.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the ones from Thunder Happy, these are pre-colored, but the good thing is, this is how your miniatures are going to come for your heavy hitters out of the box. After
So the
you
heavy
go
hitters will come with that basic paint job on them.
Yes, exactly. And
That
you call this basic.
Yeah, I didn't mean
That is
mean that the paint job is
not-
basic, but I mean that they have
A scheme.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now your support, they're just colored, but these being your stars, they get that little extra.
Yeah.
You can also go in and actually get a painter's edition where you get these plus some unbuilt, unpainted versions if you really want to go to town and do your own thing with them.
Yeah.
So,
Which we totally do. We totally do.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Standout mechanics for this game, right? So, standard board game. Say there's 4 of us playing. You expect it to go to me, to you, to the next, and then back to me, right? Not so in this game. So you'll do your movement, and it'll go round the turn as normal.
Yeah.
You'll then come to your weapons, and your weapons have a speed on them.
Right.
So if you pick to fire a primary weapon, which is a higher speed than the guy that's going first, and you're going last for the movement, you get to fire first. So there's a real tactics of, do I want to fire first? Do I want to make myself that target? Or do I just want to quietly sneak around the board, tagging and taking down buildings to win that way? You know, as well as that, in this kit, we're actually missing the palette cards and the sponsorship tracker. Because as you go through and do certain actions and stuff, you'll gain like fame points and stuff like that to actually, you're becoming a bigger star, and so you'll get some additional abilities. But as you do other things, you get to, actually as you tag buildings, you get to draw from a sponsorship deck, which gives you extra abilities and stuff.
Yeah.
Your pilot cards, on the other hand, give you a special ability randomly at the start of every game.
Yeah.
So you could play with the same mech, but have a completely different outcome because of the different ability of your pilot. Fantastic. Beautiful. I love it.
A game that you were able to pick up in 30 minutes, but it sounds to me like a game with so much potential for depth to it.
Such depth. And these guys are just blasting through the stretch goals right now, adding new primary and secondary weapons.
Yeah.
Because even at the start of the game, you're not just handed a mech and a deck of cards. You're handed a mech, your deck of cards, and then you're picking out your primary weapon you want, a couple of secondaries, support cards that you want to throw into that deck.
And what are the dashboards for then? How do they work?
The dashboards are very simple, right? So down this side, you have your energy, right? So like I was saying, +5 at the start of every round, you can go down to 0 or go beyond and actually hurt yourself to do it.
Yeah.
You've got this, which is your main system card. This is your offline systems, and this is your damage systems card.
Yeah.
So I can play stuff, goes into the discard. If I start taking damage, it goes into here, and I can't get it back without my little repair bot. And your little repair bot lets you drag cards back out of here and into your deck to keep you rolling.
Yeah, and the repair bot is one of those small
so
support ones.
This little dude here.
Yeah.
For Thunderwolf, or Thunder Happy is. He's just running around, helping you out. But these guys can attack as well.
Yeah.
And they can tag as well. So there's a real balance between getting your support pieces out on the table to actually tag and help you out, and conserving energy to actually do those big hits against your opponent. Because when you're deploying them, if you have a deploy card, it costs you 2 energy. If you don't, you can still deploy them, but it costs you 4.
Yeah.
So it's really heavy on the resource management and stuff. Fantastic.
Right, as well as that, like you're talking about buildings.
Yes.
You get the buildings in the kit as well.
Yes. Let me build a building. See what I did there?
Yeah. I see what you did there.
All right, so let me quickly grab one of these. Now, as it stands, this is basically the most basic version of these at the minute, right? So all goes together, pops in, cap goes on the top, if I can get it to work. There we go. And then from there, depending on which side you're sitting on during the tagging phase, you will apply, I can grab one of these, these, which are your little hollow billboards.
Okay.
So they go into the top slot here. As soon as you get 4 on there, building crumbles.
Yeah.
And in the final version of the game, there's going to be a rubble marker in here with another slot to actually mark that you're the one that has taken this building down.
Gotcha.
So the mechanics are really fast. I mean, myself and John got to play this game, and by the end of it, we were both just sat there going, oh, okay, Kickstarter, have to do it. And I will be honest, I've jumped straight in on this one.
You've jumped in on this one. Of course he has. Of course he has.
You see how enthused I am? I couldn't not.
Yeah.
You know.
Now we have a full Let's Play.
We do.
So there are a couple of reviews and stuff out there, but we thought the best way to review this game was to give you a full Let's Play. So John and Justin have recorded a full Let's Play of an entire game based on what we got in the actual kit. So if you want to see that, the link will be in the show notes.
Yes.
Won't it, Ben?
Yes, it will.
Yes, the link will be in the show notes, where you can go and watch that Let's Play and get a real feel for the mechanics and stuff of the game.
I will say there are 1 or 2 things I think still need tweaked within the game, but the rules are still in that stage where they're malleable and changing and adjusting. So, get your comments in on that to actually talk about what you think could be different, could be changed a little bit. Because I know the guys are looking at it.
Yeah, because the Weta guys are watching on this.
Oh,
this much I do know. So if you have suggestions and things like that for the game, now is the time to go and watch those Let's Plays and get stuck in.
Exactly.
But I've got to say, as demo kits go, I was absolutely blown away by this. So stompy robots may not absolutely be my thing.
I think they are now. A little bit. Come on, give it to me a little bit.
I'm telling you, we're going to get a game of this, and I think I'm going to enjoy this.
You're on.
I love the premise of it. Right, we are going to take a quick break. We're going to tell you about some hubs, and then we're coming back to tell you about a couple of Kickstarters that you probably don't want to miss, other than this one.
Anime cyberpunk style meets skirmish combat in Infinity. Experience 8 high-tech factions and fight to control the human sphere at the Infinity Hub on beastofwar.com. Progress comes to a world of magic as science and the arcane combine to make marvels. Meet steampunk inventors and orc mystics at the Volsun Hub on beastofwar.com.
Welcome back, guys. So now it's time for our weekly journey through Kickstarter land. Okay, Ben, what have you picked for us?
So the first one is one from Titan Forge, who they've been working on a whole bunch of different ranges over the last couple of years. Their latest one is a huge fantasy army based off Asian mythology, and it's called the Dragon Empire, and it's their new tabletop army.
Right.
Now this is all going to be in 28mm scale. It's all going to be in resin as well, and it's effectively the kind of army you'd want if you just wanted to get some loads of really awesome, fantastical creatures onto the tabletop. They have dragons, they have Kamainu style of dog cavalry. They have the Oni as sort of like big, huge, monstrous beasts and things like that.
Yeah.
And they're really focusing on bringing together quite a fantastic looking army for this one. A couple of things. They've got a very sort of cut down series of pledges for this one. You can either go in at it at the sort of $1 level, and you can sort of look towards the sort of later sort of pledge manager side of things.
Yeah.
Or you can go for a sort of cut down army at the samurai pledge. Or you can go all the way up to the top and the Dragon Pledge, which of course gets you the dragon, as you might imagine. They've also been doing some really good stuff in terms of their stretch goals. They've been bursting through a whole bunch of them. They've unlocked lots of new characters and things like that. So if you're starting to put together a bit more of a fantasy army with lots of individual characters like mystics and other warriors and sort of stealthy guys, you've got the likes of ninjas and monks and things. They've also been looking at alternative sculpts for a lot of their sort of more basic infantry units, just so you've got a little bit more variety when it comes to building up your units and things. So they look a little bit more dynamic. They've also got some big pieces of kit in there as well, in terms of Gatling guns, cannons, lots of different types of weapons that you would have seen coming through in sort of Japan and China during the sort of later periods and things too. But yeah, it looks really fantastic, and I know that a lot of people have been really jumping in on this one because it's got that really cool Asian theme to it, and they're sort of, a lot of people have been saying that they want to try and use these armies for things like Kings of War and sort of making their big armies for that. Titan Forge are actually making their own set of rules for this actually as well. So they've got a game called War of Titans, which is going to bring in a lot of the existing armies that they've already been working on as well. But that's sort of in the beta stages at the moment, and I think we're going to see some rules for that later on down the line during this campaign. But yeah, very, very cool looking army for people that want to get stuck into a proper fantasy based project for this. Yeah,
I am absolutely gobsmacked.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen a Kickstarter quite like it. The miniatures are absolutely beautiful, and these 360s that they've done on the Kickstarter page are just brilliant.
This is something Lloyd used to talk to me about. Whenever you're looking at something online, you want to make it so that you're going to look at it and want to reach into the screen and grab it and bring it out and actually have it. This does this perfectly.
Also, Lloyd has a thing about butts. Lloyd likes to see the butts of miniatures. So 360s are a handy way for him to do that.
Yeah.
But I've got to say, I cannot get over the amount of stuff. And I was looking at each of those miniatures thinking, right, the next one I'm not going to like. No, I like that. Okay, the next one I'm probably not going to like. No, I like that one too. What? Yeah. The next? No, I like all of it. That is probably one of the most beautiful, armies that I've ever seen. And for that to come out in one shot, it's like, what are those guys? What are those guys eating and drinking over there? It's like, holy crap!
Yeah,
that is stunning, Ben. That is, I'm going to use it. Stunning, absolutely
deserves it.
Stunning. What an incredible looking army.
This has to be one of my favorites here, the crossbow.
Yeah.
Because it just has that really fantasy Asian feel to it.
Actually, for me, it was the pose of the archers.
The archers, they're way on up here.
It's hard to pick, to be honest, because there was a number of miniatures in there, like the girl on the fish.
Yeah. Well, there's your
I never thought I'd be into a girl on a fish, but I was totally into that.
Yeah, so this one.
The Oni are my favorite. I just love them in terms of in pretty much any game that has any kind of look towards the Oni and that Japanese side of mythology. I've always loved to look at them, and I think they've done a really good job in this one because you've got the big, huge guys with the muscle bound with the huge flowing locks as well. It looks very, very cool.
Yeah, and nothing scares you quite like a big red guy running around with a Tetsubo.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, there's only 8 days left to go, so if you fancy it. And, if you've ever thought about a fantasy samurai army or something like that, I can't think elsewhere where you might look, to be honest, to see something as cool as that.
Yeah.
Go and get stuck in now while you save a few bob. The big question is War of Titans, Ben. Do we have a release date? Who do I need to kidnap from Titanforge to find out more about it?
We don't actually have any kind of release dates and too much on it yet, but it is going to be something that they're working on throughout the year after this Kickstarter's finished. As I say, they already want to try and ingratiate a lot of the existing fantasy armies into this. So in the past, they've looked at things like they have quite a huge undead orc faction out there. They have an ogre army as well, so they're going to be trying to draw that sort of thing into the project in the future as well. They do some other really fantastic stuff in terms of sci-fi too. So if you're interested, you can go and check out some more stuff on their web store, but hopefully it won't be too long until we see some beta rules for War on Titan, just to see what it's like actually. But in the meantime, as I said, you've got things like Kings of War if you want to get stuck into that. So
Titanforge,
gotta lay our hands on it.
There's a chair there. There's
Open
a chair
invitation?
there, and it is absolutely waiting for you. The second you are ready to come and talk to us about War of Titans, there's a chair there sitting waiting for you. Reach out to us. Please reach out to us. That I'm astounded.
Yep.
I'm astounded at the work that has went into that. Okay, next up, Angel Heraldez.
Yeah, so this is his project called Luxumbra, which we talked about a little bit before, but there's a little bit of an update on the Kickstarter campaign and where it's going so far. For people that don't know, this one is effectively it's a Kickstarter for collectors to get stuck into and hobbyists. And they're looking at creating larger than life scale miniatures that you might not necessarily use on the tabletop effectively.
And busts, Ben, and busts.
And busts as well, yes. I was just about to get to that. So yes, they've been working at the moment on this Infinity collection. So this is alongside Corvus Belli.
Yeah.
They have a range of 4 busts at the moment. They're looking towards a one later on down the line with stretch goals. But they've also got some 75mm models in there as well. So there's an Oyuri pilot.
Yeah.
And they've also unlocked Ajax as well. So if you like your Aleph faction, you can also get yourself the big guy with the hammer, which is very, very cool. But yeah, it's a really nice little project for someone who loves, painting and hobbying and trying out things on a larger scale and getting to use like loads of different techniques, so airbrushing and paint, traditional sort of paintbrush methods as well. They've got some really interesting little bits and pieces in with this Kickstarter too. There's little optional extras for a lot of the things, so you can buy bases for a lot of stuff. There's guidebooks, there's carry cases and things like that. They've also got a couple of different pledge levels where you can actually go out to fly and meet the guys at Luxumbra, so you can go and learn from the masters themselves as well, which is very, very cool.
Spend some time in sunny Spain, eh?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's an excuse for a holiday and a lesson at the same time.
Absolutely.
But it's really fascinating to see where it's going with this, and I love the idea that they're starting off with Infinity. It really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Amazing models, and they're carrying it over into this way. But the future of Luxumbra doesn't necessarily have to only be Infinity. It'll be really good to see what they do with other game systems and where they bring in like their intellectual property for busts and other 75mm models as well.
Fantastic.
So check this one out if you really like the sort of collecting and hobby side of things.
22 days left on that. If you're a bit of a collector and or an Infinity player, that is one definitely worth checking out. And if you fancy spending some days in beautiful Spain, learning how to paint beautiful. There's a beautiful pledge level there that you can hop in on. Right, that is your lot for this weekend, and it was a lot for this weekend. Remember, next weekend we're live blogging the Flames of War 4th edition bootcamp. We're going to be giving away loads of Flames of War stuff, so come on over. Spend the weekend with us. Tomorrow morning we have the XLBS version of the show. We've got some really interesting stuff to talk about. One of the key topics is going to be about environmental rules and thinking more about environments and how the environments can impact on our games and how we can work out how they can directly impact on our games. So if you're interested, we always appreciate you coming across and joining backstage. Makes a big difference to us and allows us to keep doing what we're doing. Keeps us alive. So yeah. Until we see you again, have a great week of gaming. Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now, and be sure to check out beastsofwar.com for the latest gaming news and gaming Let's Plays. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.